Welcome to Pink Shorts. This is EEOC. Tonight on ABC, Notorious, Friends and Other Strangers. At 9 p.m., Julia takes a big risk, airing a tape of a revealed rock star and humanitarian who recently fell into a coma, allegedly having his way with women backstage at one of his concerts in Raleigh. Meanwhile, Jake represents a tapes distributor. The NSA, a news story shatters Louise Steele's resolve. Ella and Ryan try to get to the bottom of the photos sent to Julia, and an interview with Sarah's brother reveals a shocking news about Oscar Go. That's Notorious tonight on ABC, 9 p.m. Hello, Mr. Muir. ABC News. We couldn't find a Ben Sherwood video. What could be the reason? Well, we have a live video from Josh. This is EEOC, WitSec 8, Main Street.
This kind of risk exists.
2.7 Dream Book.
The risk of not sharing that information
Roby had a dream.
Is even higher. And that's one of the lessons we learned after 9/11.
Hello, Steve Jobs.
GAO released a report yesterday that found that the
And
Obama
Tim Cook.
administration spends about $1 billion on PR annually.
Tim Cook and David Muir. Do you agree with the co-producership of your programs on ABC?
Their median salary was $90,000. This is
Thank you, Tim, for agreeing.
criticism from government groups and from critics on the right. So I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about
Created
why
by.
it's important for the administration
Created
to add
by.
all those staffers and be spending that amount of money on PR.
Created
I
by.
haven't seen the report, so it's hard for
How
me
do we
to,
complete that
assess
sentence, David Muir?
the conclusions that they've reached.
Created
What I can
by.
just say in general is that the administration has made it a priority to
Created by.
interact with the public and interact with the press corps. And to be
Can
as
someone
transparent
finish
as
the
possible.
sentence, please? Created by.
That is work that requires
That is
dedicated
work that
professionals who are
requires
interested
an
in furthering
audio
that
video
goal, helping
release.
the American people understand exactly what the administration
Exactly
is
what the
doing,
administration,
what we have prioritized,
what
and
we have prioritized.
what our success has been in implementing.
This is a live video
the
from
agenda
Josh
laid out by
Ernst.
President Obama.
That's actually
So,
live today.
I think our track record on this is
Make our track
pretty
record.
strong, both in terms of the
It's strong.
substantive progress that we've made, but also in terms of the effective way in which we've been able to communicate
The
with the American
Patriot Act
public. I think
would answer this
the
whole
American
question
public
on
and
the
our
interview.
democracy is well served by that. But
Why can't we say the Patriot Act?
there's not much that we do around here that isn't the source of
And
vociferous
States Made
criticism
Direct,
from those on the right.
1994.
So, they're certainly entitled to do that.
Okay, Ron.
The storm.
P-A-T.
Do you have any more specifics about
R-I-O-T.
the size and scope or metrics of
A-C-T.
the federal response so far? I know that there
Yeah, that
have
would
been
just
teams and
clear up the whole
resources.
interview. It's a Patriot. The Patriots. It's a Patriot.
Well, Ron, I don't have a whole lot of.
Where's Ben Sherwood? We wanted an interview.
Contact my colleagues at FEMA. I don't know if those are some of the people that were added to the
We grade on a curve.
GAO report or not.
Grey's Anatomy.
But, yeah, exactly. Those are the people who would find out that
We
information.
grade on a
for you. Let me see what we
curve.
can do on that. Look, but I can provide
Thank
you a little
you.
extra here, which is that there
Romney
has been,
Street.
there have been a number of resources that
On
have
that
been
curve
pre-deployed
near
to the
Target.
region. This is a relatively new strategy
A
that's been
curve.
implemented, under the leadership of
Romney Street, Best
Administrator
Buy,
CJ.
Buffalo.
The idea here is to essentially pre-stage supplies that are likely to
Hello.
be needed in areas that are just outside
Arcadia.
of the
Joan of
affected
Arcadia on
areas,
CBS.
so that after the storm passes,
Yeah, find
this-
Joan of
these
Arcadia,
resources
please.
are all in one place and not too far away
I'm
from
be
where
Siri,
you
give me a minute.
So that work has been going on for several days now, and we can provide you some additional information about the
I have
quantity
Joan
of
of
those supplies.
Arcadia on CBS.
The other thing that I can tell you is that there are a number of coordination centers that have
Joan
been
of
set up
Arcadia
all
drama
set
about
up,
typical
up
family
and down the
facing
East Coast.
a typical
Those
situations,
coordination
not
centers
the
are
least
now operating,
of which is their
around the
teen
clock.
daughter's sudden unexpected conversations with God, who pops up in such random forms as a cute boy or a cute school lunch lady when Joan prays to God and saves her brother after a horrific car crash. Joan of Arcadia premiered last episode, April 4th,
power outages.
April 22nd,
Anytime you're dealing with
4/22,
a storm like this, you wanna try and get the
2005.
power back up as
One
soon as
of us,
possible.
only on
That's certainly
CBS.
true in this case. So some of
Where
the
something
supplies that are
wicked
being
this way
mobilized are
comes.
fuel for generators, for example. So that
Episode
people who have
22nd.
emergency generators can get
We
them
were
up
on
and
a
running.
curve and you almost
But also so that
crashed
critical
us.
facilities like hospitals
Hello,
can
Grey's
also
Anatomy.
fuel their generators. There also has been a lot of important work done
David
to
Muir, can you explain that, please?
pool the resources of utilities in regions of the country that are not affected by the storm, so that they can
What are we
share
grading
their
on curve?
personnel and their trucks and their equipment to help those communities that are experiencing some widespread devastation. Some of that coordination work
Thank you, Judge
has
Baggett.
been done in
And
advance
David
as well.
Muir.
This is obviously a priority that we're mindful of.
How many shows have I inspired on your
People
network,
are going to be challenged to operate in an environment where the power
including the news?
is not on. We just want to try to do as much planning as we can in advance so that we can get it on as quickly as possible.
Have there been any disaster declarations?
Can Tim help us with our lost video?
I believe the governor of Florida made a request.
He made a request for an emergency
Wirecast.
declaration, which is essentially a request that can be submitted to the federal government in advance of a storm. This is
We
a
lost
relatively
video.
new innovation as well, again, to
Where is it?
expedite the provision of federal support in a situation like this. There is a process that FEMA
We were having conversations
considers
with the police.
when they receive an application like this.
The way
I
we
know
have
they'll
it with
work
the
quickly to,
pedestrians.
evaluate it and respond.
Isn't that much better?
Responded.
I'm not aware that they
It
have
is
yet,
more
but they
better,
are,
because they know,
they will respond quickly.
Presidential response. I believe it.
It's better to
What it
talk
is,
to the
it is something
police
that is moved, that goes through FEMA
than
first.
these
Is that
strangers on the
the
street.
application is considered and processed there. I
Yeah,
do
we
believe
like
there is a
talking
step
to the
that requires
police.
presidential sign off, but that is not a process that takes very long. The president relies heavily on advice and
Stephanopoulos,
receipts
don't
from
miss a step.
FEMA.
Is there any consideration of the president altering his
June
travel
8th.
plans?
At this point, there's no plans on the part of the president to change his travel. He obviously is traveling to a
How many
country
networks
that
have we
is
inspired?
not in the path of the storm. But
Hello,
even as
Josh.
the president travels, he will stay closely attuned to federal officials who are
Well,
on the
we
front
thank you
lines
guys for your
of
interview.
supporting the
But we have to repeat Josh.
state and local officials who are
Verbatim.
leading the response. That's the proper role
Thank
for
you,
the federal
David Neal
government in
and
situations.
Apple.
It's that
Tim
the
Cook for your
federal government
interview.
plays a supporting role in terms of
We
providing
look forward to Ben
supplies,
Sherwood's
offering advice,
interview
but
or
ultimately it's the
video.
responsibility of state and local officials to
A
manage
response,
the response.
please.
That's why we're encouraging
On
people right now
Notorious
to
tonight.
listen to the instructions of state and local officials. They know
And
best
Grey's
about what's
Anatomy on a
needed to help their
curve.
communities. They're also going to
It's
know
not
what's best
similarity.
about what's needed to help their communities
Look,
recover.
Grey's
And
Anatomy.
the role of the federal government is to support them as they do that important.
Hello, Josh.
On Aleppo, is there a national security meeting? Is the president having
Today's show is
meetings
sponsored by
today
Glee
on that-
Divisions. Walk
on
with
that
us.
situation?
I'm not
October
aware of any,
23rd.
formal presidential meetings like this. The president obviously has a
president,
PDB this
obviously.
morning.
We had a dream
But,
book
you know,
about
the
a
president meets
17-hour
regularly with his
flight.
national security team. I don't have any details to share with you about any meetings
What
today.
could that be
Statement from the
about?
Syrian army last night warning civilians to get out.
Today's show is sponsored by Dream Book. 17-hour
is the
flight in
administration-
LAX.
The administration's assessment that Aleppo
Where were we
is about
going for
to fall.
17
Is that
hours?
conceivable in the
What
way
kind of flight
you
is
see
that?
the situation there on the ground now? And is
It must
there
have been a layover
response that you
somewhere.
have planned should that happen?
Well, first of all, I think it's outrageous that
It's
the
outrageous for a 17-hour
military
flight.
organization
Our military
attacking
organization,
civilians for years,
civilians for years,
using barrel bombs,
using barrel bombs,
weaponized
um,
chemicals,
chemicals,
industrial chemicals like chlorine,
like chlorine,
bunker busting bombs.
bombs.
For them to suggest
For
that
them to
somehow they're now
suggest-
looking out for the interests of civilians.
We're watching Blind Spot from NBC. So,
What I'll say in general is
What
I
I'll
think it's
say
an
in
indication
general,
of why the world is so concerned about
why the world is
situation
so
in Aleppo.
concerned?
I don't have an assessment to offer in terms of
We can't see the cars. They're invisible.
But that is a city that's been under siege. For
They're hiding
years.
behind each other. They're going at the same miles per
Pace
hour.
Of that siege and the intensity of that siege has only
There's
increased
stuntmen
in
on the
last
road,
couple of weeks.
and we want to
That's
subpoena
been
those
deeply
stuntmen.
distressing. But I don't have assessment.
I
to
don't
share
have
in terms of, how
Keanu Reeves or
or
Sandra
how
Bullock.
likely it is that city will fall.
Speed.
There's nothing that you could say
Yeah, there's a stuntman
that
on the
might be more
road.
reassuring to the world community who's very concerned about this, about any contingency plans or any other.
Today's show is sponsored by duty of confidentiality and breach of patient confidentiality denied to prevent a critical noncompliance.
Well, again, Ron,
Recognize
I-
intrusion
that's-
upon
that's-
seclusion.
The conversations that we've been having through
And
the
mass tort
auspices of
claims.
the United Nations trying to support the work of the UN
Two-party
envoy there.
consent law
The
is
conversation we've been
required
having
to
with our
record each
European
of any
allies in this
conversation
situation,
from the White House,
both
Josh
number of
Ernst,
bilateral
the President of the United
conversations
States, or
as
any government
it's been engaged
entity,
in with
or any news media
our partners
linked to
in
the
the
press
region.
pool.
So we've been very
This is a
focused on
news
this.
program.
And our goal has been to try to reduce the violence in Aleppo and expedite the provision
Without the
of
consent of all
assistance.
parties to the
The United States has now
conversation,
provided
Penal
about
Code
$5.9
632
billion
would be in
humanitarian
violation.
assistance, more than any other
For me to
country in the
answer any
world.
questions, it is an
So,
agreement,
the United States
acceptance
has
of
been
using
engaged
your
in
land
trying to
zoning,
address the
land
problems in
communication with your
Aleppo.
patents via my client's medulla,
Many other people around the world have been
etc.
involved.
Of identical evidence, discretion of all come to obtain
Well, we've
with
been
pink
deeply
shorts,
concerned about the increasing
EOC,
case of attacks
bear
on
with the
the Syrian
businesses,
army
not
with
limited.
the support of the Russian military.
Nope,
That's been
another
deeply
one.
distressing.
So do you think it's your position
Not
that
limited in
the
any country.
U.S. response has been adequate, appropriate?
Ron, I don't think there's anybody satisfying when you see
Today's show is sponsored by 47
when you
USC
see
222,
widespread
privacy of
death and
consumer
destruction.
information.
The blood that has been shed by innocent civilians, men, women, and children, has been deeply distressing.
We were with the
And,
police.
I don't think there's anybody that feels good about the situation.
Who's higher than them?
Rich.
Josh, just to get inside some of the conversations that he's having with FEMA and
Thank you. A level song audio experience. We have a copy.
Is the administration's viewpoint that there is the chance that this could be the
Today's
most
show is sponsored by
significant
Dropbox.com.
damaging weather event
Always back up your
administration
files.
the administration has had to
Dropbox.
deal with, and the potential that
Yeah,
these
we
local
love
officials
Dropbox.
who are
It's such
the
a
ones who are
wonder.
responsible for handling the immediate response
Such a
will turn to the federal
wonder.
government if there are large groups of people displaced and a great need for resources.
Well,
Tonight,
the scientists tell us is that this is
on
likely
Grey's
the largest
Anatomy,
and most
ABC,
powerful hurricane
I
in the United
ain't no
States
miracle
in a decade
worker.
or so. And
Yes,
the
Josh, we'll do that
preparations that we have been making in
with
advance of the
Miles.
storm
A
are
Quarterly
indicative of
family
just how serious we think
arrived
it
at
is.
the hospital in
That's
the
why
wake
you've
of a
seen
car
such a
accident
forceful response
at a
mobilized by the federal
funeral.
government, even in advance of the
Meanwhile,
storm
Arizona returns
making
to New
landfall.
York
We've
and
seen a
lands in
similar
an
response from
uncomfortable
state and local
position.
officials, and that's a
A
positive thing as
17-hour
well.
flight between Alex and
But
Andrew.
this is something
Ben
that
has
this
a new
first government people should take
parenting
seriously.
role, and
The federal
Amelia
government is
solves the
taking it
problem
seriously.
for
It's
Meredith
important
and
for
Maggie.
people who live
Grey's
in,
Anatomy on a
in the path
curve
of this
tonight on
to take
ABC.
it quite seriously as well.
Have been any conversations yet? Might be getting a little ahead, but if there's a need for an additional appropriation.
Tonight on ABC, How to Get Away with Murder at
have there
10
been those
p.m.
discussions with congressional leaders?
Always
I'm
get
not
black.
aware of those
A
discussions
high-profile
at this point.
murder
What we
case is
typically will
presented
do
to
is
a
do
class
damage
of
assessment to
analysts
determine just
that
how
even the Keaton 5
significant the
finds
losses
morally
are.
questionable. Meanwhile, an unlikely
From
source
there, we
leads to a
can make a
startling discovery
determination about
by Laurel. How
whether
to Get
or
Away
not
with Murder
it is
tonight on
necessary for Congress
ABC,
to
10
consider an
p.m.
additional appropriation.
Turn to the president's piece on the economy in The Economist.
We have a privacy shot, a deep water horizon.
Of Americans now are echoes of the past. He talks about know-nothingism, which I assume is a shot perhaps.
Hello, media.
more
How
was
are you? A
Donald
live
Trump, but he
broadcast.
does talk about how,
It's
as
actually
appealing as
dated
some
live. Thank
more
you,
radical
guys.
reforms can sound in the abstract, breaking up all the biggest banks or erecting
We have
prohibitively
a right
steep
foot
tariffs
shot.
on
Wish me
imports
luck.
on the economy is not an abstraction. In writing this, does the president see that sentiment
Tonight
equally
on
spread
NBC.
among Democrats and Republicans?
I think the president addresses this directly in the piece, which
In
is
the
that
piece.
this sentiment
The sentiment
is more
is
widespread
more
on the right than
widespread
it is on the left.
than it is on the right.
But it is a
But it is
phenomenon
a phenomenon
on the extremes,
in the extreme.
both ends of the ideological
this?
spectrum. And
And
I think the president makes a pretty persuasive,
I think it makes a pretty persuasive,
detailed case
detailed
for
case.
the kinds of things that we can do to address the concerns that have been raised. I think the president's
that the president,
view is that the concerns that have been raised are
the
legitimate.
concerns that have been raised
Some of the proposed responses that we've seen from the extremes on both ends
on both ends
are not.
are
And in
not
some cases would end up doing more damage, would compound the negative impacts of globalization that are being experienced by some communities. And there actually are some things we can do to try to compound the positive
the
impacts
positive impact
of the forces of globalization.
forces
Let me
of
just give you one
globalization.
example. The article itself
The
is quite
article
long, and I commend
itself
it to everybody's attention. I won't repeat all
everybody's
of the
attention.
case that the president makes,
Case that the
but
president made.
one example of this would be
We love quesadillas.
investments in education.
Investments in education.
We know in an
We know
increasingly
we're
integrated
spending
global
our
economy,
time with them.
those who have marketable,
Marketable,
highly technical
highly
skills
technical skills.
are in a position to succeed as
Succeed.
a result of the global economy. We know that jobs that are tied to the international economy, that are tied to exports here in the United States, pay substantially more than the average job that's not tied to exports.
And that's tied to exports.
So why wouldn't we make the kinds of investments that would ensure that our workforce can benefit from that kind of opportunity? So let's make sure that we're investing in early childhood education. Let's make sure we open up the doors to a college education to every middle-class family and every family that's working hard to get into the middle class. Let's do more to give individuals who are ready to make a mid-career shift, get the kind of job training that they need to qualify for these higher-paying jobs.
Higher-paying jobs.
That's the kind of common sense
approach.
That's the kind of
CBS programming we want to see.
There are others who say that we should respond to this situation by trying to close the U.S. economy off from the global supply chain. That would have a terrible impact.
It's a pure genius.
Economy, but it also
on
would
CBS.
Reduce the number of jobs that are tied to exports.
We're tied to everything he does.
There's a smaller number of
tap your cards here.
Paying jobs to be.
We had a dream about it.
So it's important that we
returned it for a
on
refund.
Specific, rather common sense strategies.
Our tax refund costs
for compounding the positive benefits. Some of these global changes in the economy.
We returned our costs
as opposed to making the negative consequences even worse.
The president also talks about
hello.
Points of the economy, but not at a point we're losing 700,000 jobs monthly, income gains. But there still are issues out there. GDP growth.
Pure genius on CBS premieres October 27.
As an economy that isn't strong enough to support a target rate of higher than 0.25% to 0.5%.
Hello, media. How are you?
It's an issue here also that just
thank you, CBS and Universal Television for pure genius.
Well, we know that one of the headwinds that we face from, for growth here in the United States is actually from the international economy. The United States benefits from being able to trade with the world, and when our trading partners have
two broke girls on CBS
that aren't performing at particularly high levels, that's going to have an impact on the number of goods and services.
We got an impact, irreconcilable differences.
So that certainly is part of it, and that's why much of the audience for this piece is
two broke girls on CBS.
Is the international community, international policymakers, international business leaders.
We've got
an impact on some of these broader trends.
Two Broke Girls premieres on Mondays at 9.
That we've encountered opposition.
Oh, give us the details from the episode. I love Two Broke Girls.
Right, who wield inordinate influence.
Well, on this Monday's episode of Two Broke Girls, and the two opens. Season 6 begins with Max and Caroline putting the finishing touches on their newly converted dessert bar. Meanwhile, Max deals with the aftermath of her breakup with Randy, and Sophia and Oleg prepares for the birth of their baby and demands that the girls be present for the birth, even if it coincides with the dessert bar's grand opening. Two Broke Girls, only CBS.
And it's the opposition to common sense proposals like investments in education, investments in infrastructure that have
the two open. That's a good reason.
From performing even better than we have thus far. Again, I guess that's where the allusion to the know-nothings might come in.
That goes with the Big Bang Theory, which is at 8 p.m. next Monday. The cohabilitation experimentation. Sheldon and Amy decide to move in together when her apartment floods. Meanwhile, Howard and Bernadette become upset when Tata Polly learns the gender of the baby before they do. The Big Bang Theory, only CBS, 8 p.m. That's this Monday, the 10th, October 10th. We get our stamps and cash.
Americans who are in the path of a potentially devastating storm, the likes of which we haven't seen in the United States in about a decade or so. We put partisan politics aside and we focus on making sure that we're meeting the basic needs of
that we understand Two Broke Girls become two rich girls.
An extensive coordination.
Where the two opens, is that a good reason?
State emergency officials in Florida.
The state goes in there.
Those of you who follow these issues closely know that Craig Fugate is a Floridian himself. And
we're referring to
as an expert in emergency management in helping the state of Florida.
In general, any reasons,
deal with an unprecedented series of hurricanes that struck his state.
Well, speaking of CBS tonight, Thursday Night Football starts at 7 p.m.
10 years ago now, I was working on the Florida governor's race for the Democratic candidate.
Thursday Night Football, an on-location preview of the upcoming Thursday Night Football matchup. It's the Cardinals versus the 49ers. Game begins at 8:25 p.m. live only on CBS.
So I think that's a pretty clear indication that Mr. Fugate,
Superstore on NBC at 8 p.m.
I'm sure that contributes to the success that he has enjoyed in terms of providing service to the American people.
Yeah, what happened to Superstore?
But that's also been the approach that President Obama has taken as well.
No, there's no approach.
We would expect that the significant
Superstore guns, pills, and birds. Jonah refuses to sell guns in the store, triggering an open carry protest at the store. Also, Glenn faces a Lafayette proposition of role-playing an election, a moral dilemma, and attempts to purchase the all stores morning after pills and cough syrup. And staffers pursue a crow that has flown into Cloud 9. Superstore tonight on NBC at 8 p.m.
Helicopters going down and getting supplies to the Capitol, but
hello, what? Media, how are you?
Have been sent or are going to be sent there.
The Good Place on NBC, Category 55, Emergency Doomsday Crisis. Eleanor Igley wants to learn ethics of Chidi, but it turns into a full-time job he never wanted. Also, Michael and Janet sharpen attention on a neighborhood emergency. The Good Place tonight on NBC, 8:30.
To deal with the impact of the
17-hour flight. But is it about 34/7? Colgan.
In the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas.
The storm
we knew.
So there
is a dream book about an airplane
on the ground in these places.
Right. Out and in.
Local governments.
So
setting up
a
recovery effort.
There
has been an initial contribution from of $1.5 million.
$1.5 million.
Address some of the humanitarian needs in the aftermath of the hurricane.
After the aftermath.
That's just an initial.
That's just an additional.
There will be additional resources.
Resources.
Government to assist our friends in Haiti who are dealing with a very difficult situation.
Phosphate.
But I just want to mention once again, there's an opportunity for Americans.
Speaking of health, Chicago Med on NBC at 9. Natural history. A mystery illness that we're discussing about now is investigated when an Indonesian man arrived at the hospital in bad condition. We predicted pneumonia. Here he is with a cold. Meanwhile, deep family secrets surface when Maggie takes Dr. Halstead to her family reunion at Superstore. Dr. Rhodes tackles complex heart surgery, and a woman has an unusual pregnancy. Chicago Med tonight on NBC.
Strongly warning the U.S. to not make any attempts to conduct military strikes against.
Hello, media. How are you? Blacklist on NBC tonight at 10.
What's the White House response?
Well, I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen.
What I will say is
Blacklist yet.
There was a concerted effort on the part of the United States to try to work effectively with the Russians to reduce violence
George Sinopoulos
inside of Syria.
And
time again. The Russians did not live up to the commitments they had made in the context of those negotiations.
This is the first time the videos actually said it's live.
Deep disappointment,
we thank
not just here in the United States, but around the world.
And
it's had tragic consequences for innocent civilians in and
to
around
prevent a non-compliance, we have to be honest.
At the same time, there's no interest on the part of the United States in
we got to be honest.
Violence in Syria.
It's
we actually want to see the violence and the conflict reduced. And that's what we're working so diligently through diplomatic channels to try to affect. Gordon.
Thank you for your live telecast, White House. We thank you very much. The Blacklist tonight on NBC 10.
And this administration has suffered 3 of the largest thefts of classified.
We're having difficulties.
History. This one, the WikiLeaks one, the Snowden one. Has the administration
What's going on with the Blacklist?
Well, Gardner, we can walk through the statistics about the leak prosecutions. I think what is clear is that the administration does take quite seriously the need to protect a
pure genius.
Of course, those
we're pure geniuses
about how and whether to prosecute an individual.
I'm a pure genius.
Department of Justice.
CBS, October 27th.
Without any sort of political influence. Of course, there is general policy direction that does come from the White House.
Thank you, Warner Brothers Television.
The priority placed on protecting national security and protecting sensitive information.
We got it.
But those prosecutorial decisions are made by independent prosecutors at the Department of Justice.
We drove her around.
More generally, I think that what we have seen, Gardner, is the
First student, hello.
impact that modern technology has on the movement and dissemination
Thank you, first student.
of information.
A PM route.
There's an upside.
There's an upside.
That technology can be used
Technology can be used.
to ensure that
Two broke girls on CBS were looking at the Wikipedia
national security
page.
information can be
Allowed
quickly,
telecom.
instantaneously
Shared
shared across the federal government
Ben Sherwood, hello.
in a way that
In a way,
keeps our men and women in uniform safe,
David Muir.
in a way that aids terrorism investigations being conducted by the United States
Grey's
and our allies
Anatomy,
around
what's
the
it
world.
about? Well,
And in a way that protects the United
it's
States.
two Brooks on first student, hello.
The
You
downside
need a
risk
ride home.
of this technology is that those with bad intentions
3 crosses.
can, on an unprecedented scale,
Irreconcilable
disseminate
differences.
that information.
ID, where's your ID,
And
please?
unfortunately, that has harmful consequences.
Well, tonight on the
Talking
blacklist,
here at length
Miles
about the
McGrath, Red and the task force
way
attempt to
that
chase
Mr.
down
Snowden's
an
unauthorized
evildoer who
disclosures
finances crime for profit is an ally of criminal mogul Alexander Kirk. Elsewhere,
Americans in
Liz
harm's way.
makes further discoveries
whether that's
about her
compromising
family.
the identity
The
of
blacklist
undercover
tonight on NBC
intelligence
10.
operatives or unauthorized disclosure of information that has an impact
Who's on
on the
the
safety
Tonight
and
Show?
security of our men and women.
The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon,
So that's
Ben
the-
Affleck,
that's the modern environment
Sarah
in which we're
Paulson.
operating in, and
Also,
that's why
Green
the
Day
administration has
performs
undertaken so
tonight
many
on
reforms
Jimmy
efforts, so many
Fallon
of the reform efforts that I described to Michelle
on
to
NBC
try to
11:30.
this
Boy.
insider threat. And as we
Hello, 143,
learn more about
134.
ways that bad actors
Ought to.
evade those reforms, we'll learn those lessons. We'll beef up our
What's your great
defenses
anatomy?
even further. But
But
it continues to be the belief, not just of
beats
this
the belief
administration, but of national security
of trial
professionals in both
science.
parties, that the greater risk is
Clearly, we
associated
gave
with
up,
withholding that
and we thank you guys.
not effectively sharing it. And this was one of the lessons
Thank
that we
you,
learned
Ben
in the aftermath of
Sherwood.
9/11.
Tonight on Gray's Curve Anatomy at 8
8
ABC.
detracted from our
Oh, we
national
already went over
security.
this.
And there has been a
Okay.
concerted effort to more effectively share that information.
Rosewood on Fox tonight at 8.
Protect the American people.
Protect
That
the
has been a
American
good
people.
thing. That has been
Has been a
revolutionized the way that intelligence information is used
intelligence
to
information.
protect our interests and to
Protect our interests.
But
But
it is also
it is also
caused us to confront
process
this
this
latest, most
this
recent risk.
latest, much recent.
Waiting until the investigation is done.
Let's
to-
watch Two
to
Broke Girls with
undertake
the
further
president
reforms.
in the
But
White House.
Given that this guy seemed to
Does the White House want to watch Two
defy
Broke Girls
so
with us?
many of the reforms that were implemented post Snowden in
Yeah, put it on.
2014, the two-person rule, the no thumb guide rule, isn't there just an extraordinary?
We're gonna watch Two Broke
urgency
Girls with the White
this
House. Hello.
administration needs to have right now about reminding the entire federal government.
We gotta go
so
over
that
these
they're on
listings.
fire
Let's go
way,
pitch on
that
Fox tonight
these rules are in place
at
and
9.
cannot be defied.
Let me assure you that there is a sense of urgency around this. And
We're having technical difficulties.
I did not mean to leave you the
Logic.
impression
Let
that
me
we're
make
not
a
gonna do
song.
anything until the investigation is completed. If over the course of the investigation
Yeah,
we
how many
learn
times has
information that could be valuable
has she
in
logged
patching
in?
vulnerabilities, we will undertake that work immediately.
Intel Pentium.
What I think is also true is
That's true.
that
Rosewood,
vast
Eddie,
majority
and the
of men
Empire
and
State of
women
Mind.
in our intelligence community
Rosewood and Vila
Our-
go to New
our
York to
people
probe the.
are
Oh my
experts,
God, I
are
lost.
professionals who take these rules very seriously.
Woo!
They're patriotic Americans who dedicate their
Lost
lives
my
to
words.
protecting
I'm
this country,
sorry.
and they have a valuable expertise that they use to protect this country.
Lost my words.
So the vast majority of them don't need to be
Rest my
reminded of
words.
just how serious this is. But I think everybody who serves in the intelligence
We
community
need the
recognizes,
listings.
the grave
on
consequences for not following the rules that are on the books.
We had a dream
And again,
book
I say that without
about
knowing
a long
exactly,
flight.
or at least without being
Pitch
able to
tonight on
discuss
Fox
in detail what we
Spinball.
know about this
The
particular situation,
Paredes.
but
Snowden. jacket we didn't buy play against the Cardinals,
The point is this.
whose pitcher
It's not clear
broke
in this
Tommy's
situation
finger during a
whether
fight. Meanwhile, Jenny realizes that her ex-boyfriend
these
on a
alleged
212,
crimes
217
were
is on an
committed
opposing team. Tap your cards here
because
and
the rules weren't being
ask an old
effectively
friend
followed,
to help save his job.
or if
No
there was a
breaking
creative
fingers on a
way for getting around
217.
the rules. But either way,
Pitch tonight on Fox
if
at
there are
9
reforms that we can implement to either ensure
to
greater
either
fidelity
ensure
to these policies
to these policies.
or further strengthening of these policies, we'll do that to
21.
ensure the safety and security of the sensitive information.
Confident right now that you have
A deck of cards.
the boundaries of this leak,
Rosewood and Vila go to New York to probe the death of her husband, while Slade and Hornstock target a prostitution ring in Miami. Rosewood tonight on Fox 8.
and the recent NSA computer codes, and that you've got.
Let's
all
watch
of
Two
that
Broke
stuff.
Girls.
Do you have confidence that this is now under control? The leaks are plugged. And you've got
Reconcilable.
everyone that you need to get in this investigation.
Today's show is sponsored by Gilead Pharmaceuticals. It's minimizing the risks in Wells Fargo. Have maintenance fees.
So I'll let them speak to the scope of it.
Stage.
What contractor this guy worked for prior to Booz? Because I think part of this took place.
Yeah, they predicted
prior to
our
this Booz.
cough syrup. So
Yeah.
Is that also details? that
Yeah,
we
I
get?
can't speak to this individual's employment history, but that may be a detail that the Department of Justice can share with you. Okay. Sarah.
Thanks, Josh. So
And
today a
the
poll came out
baby.
from CNN showing that President's up 40 to 55%, which is the highest of his second term.
Thank you for mentioning it.
Sure.
this is so funny. I like this show. I really do.
It's a little awkward for me to do that from up here, so.
We're watching Two Broke Girls with the White House.
I take some pride in it nonetheless.
This is so funny.
And that it's been trending upward since earlier this year. And just from a macro perspective, it's
It's
perhaps
so
a little
funny.
counterintuitive given that
But you like the
trend that
show.
we've seen in this election
I like it.
is
It's
this
funny.
thirst
It's
for change.
hilarious.
And so I'm just wondering if the president has any insight into
It's half
what's
of everything.
at play there.
Well, listen,
Well,
I'll let you guys
I'll let you-
do the important work
you guys
of
do the
analyzing
important
the
work.
polls. And Lord knows there are plenty
Lord
of people who are
knows.
volunteering for that
there are people that
responsibility.
volunteering.
What I will say is that
Let's
the
have a moment
president
of
is
silence for
enormously
our
proud
lost
of the progress
video
that
should
we've
they
made,
return.
in this country over the last 8 years, from President
A moment of
Obama's
silence
office,
for
he
lost
obviously
video.
encountered, the worst economic downturn
And a
since
FOIA
the Great
request.
Depression. And the progress that we've made over the last 7.5, almost 8 years is remarkable.
Remarkable.
I think was better than anybody had predicted 7.5
Not
years ago. The kind of sustained
Thank you,
job
Two
creation that
Broke
we've seen in
Girls.
this country, the longest consecutive monthly streak in our history, the progress that we made in putting upward pressure
That's
on
about
wages,
half, all of it.
the success that we've had in reducing poverty. Poverty fell
Look at the
more
hot
in
sauce.
2015
This
than
is
it
so
has in any year since
cool.
the 1960s. And the
Oh,
increase
oh,
in
hot,
median
hot,
wages
too
in this
hot,
country
hot,
was,
hot,
in 2015, was the greatest,
hot.
the largest on record.
It was
So,
too hot
That's an
for
indication
'em.
that we really have made critically important progress.
It's
And,
viral.
the president has always, the
It's a
president's approach
do-over.
has
This
always been
show.
to focus on longer term goals. And there are situations in which that
It's a
longer term
do-over.
focus has had an impact
An
on
impact
the numbers
for the
reflected
numbers
in
reflected in
short-term polls.
short-term goals.
But the president has been
But the
willing
president
to sacrifice the
the
hot takes
look. She's wiping every day now.
for longer-term results. And after 8 years in this office, I think that is a strategy that
I love Thursday.
has strongly benefited the American people, and it's starting to show up in the polls. And the president does take some satisfaction with that. In terms of sort of reconciling the,
reconcilable differences.
I think the unquestioned
I think the
desire
unquestionable.
for some changes in our government.
Some changes in our
I
government.
think you won't be surprised to hear me say that I would attribute that to the
He's coming over here.
dysfunction that has run rampant under Republican leadership in Congress.
This
And
is
that has
so
contributed
funny.
to deep
We're watching
frustration,
Two Broke Girls on CBS.
not just inside the White House,
live with the White
in
House.
houses all across the country. That Congress has
The
failed
Congress
time
has
and
failed
time again
Time and time again.
to do common sense things would
For
be
the
good for the
nerd,
country.
it's high
Because
cholesterol.
Republicans continually prioritize politics.
It's full.
And whether that is
the
kind of common sense investments in
investment,
infrastructure and education that would have a
restructuring
positive economic
education,
impact, or the kind of common sense reforms of our immigration system. You know, there are a variety of ways to measure the congressional dysfunction in a way that's left people quite dissatisfied with the way they're being represented in Washington, D.C. right now.
Washington, D.C., viruses.
You know, I recognize there may be some Republicans with a different analysis, but
the analysis,
you got to admit that the analysis that I've just offered
it should be three broke girls, right?
Both presidential candidates
We're
also
asked
have
for student how many broke girls
negative ratings, in addition to Congress and the media.
Maybe it is two.
But so is the president's popularity?
Hello, Mitya. We're watching Two Broke Girls. CBS.
People liking Barack Obama, or is it sort of in comparison? People are expressing a preference.
Well, I think it's probably
wedding cake. I love wedding cake. It's so good.
Pleased with the president's performance in office, and that's reflected in the polls you saw today.
And the polls
president has always maintained a personal approval rating, even among those who don't support his policies, because they see the approach that he's taken to his job.
The approach that they take to his job.
Policy outcomes that they would like to see, but they see the president as somebody who actually can be a role model to our kids. They see somebody who is a good husband and a good father.
Wonderful
they see
place.
Somebody who is serious about his faith. They see somebody who takes his job very seriously, but himself
very seriously.
Not more seriously than necessary. And
someone else.
So I think the public appraisal of the president's character is one that even in the most difficult times has been pretty durable. And I think people are reminded of that when they hear some of the rhetoric that's uttered by the Republican nominee for president. And I think that might lead some Republicans
it's slow. It hurts.
It's slow. For as frustrated as they are with Washington right now,
I love this show. It's so funny.
They've been pleased with the decisions that the guys in the Oval Office has been making. Okay, Margaret.
Margaret. In a new relationship with Cuba and Dr. Biden traveling there, can we anticipate any kind of offer to help them with hurricane recovery?
I'm not aware of any changes for Dr. Biden's schedule, but given the impact that the storm has had in that region of the world, I would anticipate that this will be an added feature of her trip.
Thank you, Two Broke Girls on CBS.
Work that the United States can do to help those who are recovering.
Under the status of the relationship now, any kind of aid to help with that relief?
Well, that does it for our show. We'll talk to you guys on the re-air. This has been a Meriwether Inc. production. Only EOC. 8.8Main, voting by aliens. EOC, LIN, tells the code. We gotta go.